evening. Every month, hundreds of viewers phone this programme with information in the hope of helping to solve crime. Tonight, perhaps you'll be one of them. The cases we feature tend to be untypical, the more serious crimes which police are most keen to solve quickly. Here's the number to ring if you do see someone or something you recognise in the next 45 minutes. 01 811 8055. The police officers investigating this month's cases are here now waiting for your call. And once again, here's the special number for deaf viewers using the Minicom system, if you'd like to make a note of that.
Tonight, 3 reconstructions, as Sue says, of unusual crimes, but important ones with clues that could lead anywhere in Britain. Do you recognise the man in a bobble hat who was seen leaving the scene of a murder in Bristol? Or did you know the victim, Keith Burgess? A plague of smash and grab raids in the Midlands. Could you help trace 4 men who used machetes in attacks on jewellers? And did you ever see the woman they sometimes called the clog lady, an anorectic who dressed in heavy clogs and bulky overcoat to hide her frailty?
And that's our first case tonight. It goes back 4 months to Saturday, November the 11th, the day before Remembrance Sunday. Sometime during that Saturday evening, 43-year-old Carmel Gamble was murdered. Carmel was born and brought up in Stroud in Gloucestershire, so people who knew her in those days are more likely to remember her by her maiden name, Carmel O'Donnell. 5 years ago, Carmel and her husband bought a cottage back near Carmel's hometown in a little village called Rodborough, just outside Stroud, but they spent most of their time at a flat they rented at Wimbledon in London. This is Church Road in Wimbledon, where Carmel lived with her husband, David. She spent a lot of her time out alone, shopping, and she was a familiar sight in her clogs and loose-fitting grey wool coat, browsing around the local boutiques.
Hello, how are you?
She was a regular customer here.
I'd like to take this one, please.
OK, fine.
I haven't got enough money to pay for it all now. Could I leave a deposit of £5?
Yes, of course, that's lovely.
Only I'm going away for a couple of weeks, so perhaps my husband could come in and pay the rest later.
Fine, that's great. It'll be in a bag just behind me. All right?
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good time. Bye.
Carmel was an intelligent woman and very much a loner. She spent many hours in the local library, just reading. She suffered from the Slimmer's disease, anorexia nervosa, and at the time of her death, she weighed just under 5 stone. She'd been receiving treatment at London's St George's Hospital.
Carmel herself was a chronic anorectic. Despite the best treatment, probably about a third of anorectics stay ill for a long time, and Carmel had been battling with her illness for the best part of 15 years without success. Because she had chronic anorexia, she's in a state of chronic starvation, semi-starvation, so she would be alert, overactive and restless. She'd sleep poorly. She was often quite irritable and had difficulty relaxing. She was somebody who always wanted to get close to people but could never manage it.
Last October, Carmel had gone to stay in their cottage in Rodborough near Stroud to spend a few weeks on her own. Her husband stayed at his job in London, but they'd arranged particular times when he'd phone her at the call box across the road.
Hello? Fine, thanks. It's lovely down here. How's things with you? Oh, thanks very much. That's really kind of you. Bye.
On Thursday, November the 9th, 2 days before she died, Carmel was shopping in Stroud town centre. Late in the afternoon, an assistant at Rumbelows remembers her coming into the shop with a slim, middle-aged man. As the assistant started to move towards them, the man walked out.
Can I help you? No, thank you.
I think she liked to shop in the evenings, partly because it was also a time when the day was beginning to close in and she may have been feeling lonely and a bit anxious about the evening coming, and also because it was getting darker and she didn't feel so self-conscious about her appearance. She lived a life of extreme routine, everything orderly, everything in its place, and that was very important to her. It gave her a sense of control. She would only eat very safe foods that weren't fattening, despite being hungry a lot of the time. She would stick to things like carrots and vegetables and what have you. I think her one self-indulgence is that she allowed herself some fruit gums at the end of a meal. And even there she was very strict with herself. She'd only allow herself one colour, for instance, not allow herself the whole packet. She was a very self-regulating individual.
Saturday the 11th of November, the day of Carmel's death. As usual, it was getting towards closing time as Carmel started her shopping. At about 4:30, she called in at a haberdashery shop in Stroud called So-and-So.
I'd like 6 of these buttons, please.
Carmel always came in on her own. She very rarely had people with her. The only time I remember her in the shop with anyone else was her husband.
And I'll take this one.
She was never with other friends, lady friends or anything. She always seemed very sad, quiet, no conversation. She would sometimes pay by cash, often by cheque, even small amounts she would buy on cheque. A couple of pounds, that sort of thing. She was regular, so that was no problem.
About half an hour later, she was in Boots in the High Street.
Can I help you? Yes, please.
The manageress had to wait for Carmel before she could cash up. That manageress is the last person known to have seen Carmel alive. Police don't know exactly how she got home that evening. She may have caught a taxi from Stroud town centre, but it would have been more typical of her to have walked the mile back to the cottage. The next morning, a local resident saw somebody in the phone box. They remember the door was slightly ajar. 20 minutes later, a neighbour saw smoke. Someone had tried to set light to the cottage. The fire brigade found Carmel's body inside. And once again, that was the morning of Sunday, the 12th of November. Mr. Pearce is in charge of this case. Have you any idea what the motive for killing Carmel might have been?
No, we haven't. Our inquiries to date have failed to reveal any specific motive whatsoever. But what I can say, this was a particularly vicious and brutal murder, and the violence was such that we have put together a psychological a profile of the offender in order to help us discover the type of person we're looking for.
There seemed to be certainly a lot of anger in the attack.
There was an extreme amount of anger.
You haven't found the murder weapons yet?
No. Carmel Gamble was killed as a result of multiple blows to the head by a heavy, rounded, blunt instrument, and also her body was mutilated by a sharp instrument, very likely a knife. And despite extensive searches, we have failed to locate either of these weapons.
And also, strangely, her woolen coat is missing too.
Yes, it is. She was known to wear a heavy woolen-type overcoat about Stroud and other towns, and we have failed to find that. It is certainly not in the house either in Stroud or London.
Is there any reason why you can think it might have been stolen?
It may be the murderer put it on in order to hide blood-stained clothing.
Now, she and her husband kept themselves very much to themselves. They didn't have many friends. But she was seen in Rumbelows with somebody that day by the shop assistant. What description did that shop assistant give of him?
Yes, he described it as a white male person, approximately 45 years of age, 5'4" tall, slim build, and wearing a light grey herringbone-type jacket, together with a dark grey pullover.
And he was in Rumbelows in Stroud 2 days before she died?
Yes, he was.
Are there any other suspects?
Yes, there are 2 other persons that we're interested in. And one is described by a witness as a young white male sitting on a bench at approximately 2:30 a.m. in the morning of Sunday the 12th, just yards from Carmel Gamble's house. He had his head in his hands, and by the side of him had a white plastic bag which looked upright as though it had something in it. And the question to be asked, did that have a container with paraffin-type accelerant in it, which was used to set fire to the house?
That must have been an unusual sight in a small village at 2:30 in the morning.
Yes, we obviously need to trace and identify that person as soon as possible.
The other person, presumably, is the one in the phone box seen just before the fire at Carmel's cottage was discovered.
Yes, it is. That person is described as wearing a long woolen-type overcoat, with the door slightly ajar. And as is directly opposite the house, was this an innocent telephone user, or was it indeed the murderer looking at the house and awaiting the development of the fire before leaving the scene?
So, well, Mr Pearce, thank you very much indeed. If that was you, and if you are an innocent phone caller, please do phone and be eliminated from the inquiries. The number, if you can help, 01811 8055, 01811 8055, or you can call the police station at Stroud direct on 0453 766 311. That's 0453, the code for Stroud, 766 311.
There was a quick and dramatic sequel to one of our reconstructions last month. It was about Karen Price, a 15-year-old who disappeared 8 years ago and whose remains were discovered in December, buried in the garden of a house in Cardiff. After several calls to the Crimewatch studio, a man agreed to meet the police, and over the next few days he volunteered a great deal of information, as a result of which 2 men have now been charged with Karen's murder.
There have also been developments on another of last month's cases, and that was the murder in Southampton of Ricky Hayward, an antique furniture and jewellery dealer. You might remember he was trying to negotiate a deal on a farm property just outside Southampton. Well, more than 100 viewers called with information, and as a result of that, there is a new line of inquiry now, which police really can't make public at the moment, but I hope we'll be able to report more progress by next month's programme.
Well, let me now introduce you to a new Crimewatch presenter. From the start of Crimewatch, 2 police officers, Superintendent David Hatcher and WPC Helen Phelps, have made appeals directly on behalf of the police. But since Helen has left the force, she's joined us as a researcher, we've asked another officer to take her place. So here with the incident desk, along with David Hatcher, is Detective Constable Jackie Hames.
Our first case is focused on Desborough Road in the outskirts of High Wycombe town centre in Buckinghamshire. Thames Valley Police are looking for a man who has stabbed 2 women and threatened a third, all on that same road. He's described as Asian-looking, 6 feet tall, slim build, 18 to 26 years of age, with black, swept-back hair. The first attack was on Wednesday the 13th of December last year. A 21-year-old science student was walking into the town centre. At around 12:30 in the afternoon, she was passing the Wycombe International Club in Desborough Road when a tall man walking towards her pulled out a knife and stabbed her in the chest. The knife pierced her heart, but as a result of an emergency operation, she survived the attack. The second attack was nearly 6 weeks later on Sunday the 21st of January. In the early evening, a 32-year-old woman left her home on the edge of the town centre to attend a regular church meeting. Her route took her past the Wycombe International Club and along Desborough Road into the town. Around 5 p.m, as she was walking past the motorist supply shop, she was stabbed in the back and the elbow. Her attacker then disappeared around the corner into Westbourne Street. The latest incident was on Sunday the 25th of February. Around 9:30 in the evening, a 20-year-old art student was walking along Green Street, heading for the railway station in the town centre. As she turned the bend in the road, she saw a man holding a knife, which was pointed towards her. Again, he seemed Asian, and he spoke with a very soft voice in what she thinks was an Indian language. The young student just dropped her bags, turned and fled. In her distress, she ran in front of a car. We want that motorist to contact us. They might well have seen the man who threatened her. If you recognise him or were in Desborough Road at the time, do please call us.
Next, my colleagues in Sussex need your help to find the murderers of retired vet William Howe. 63-year-old Mr Howe was found dead in his flat in Victoria Road, Worthing. He lived above the vet surgery he ran before he retired. He was last seen alive on Monday the 8th of January at about 5:30 p.m. and spoke to a friend on the phone between 7:40 and 8:10 p.m. He was murdered within a few hours of that phone call. His attackers left few clues to their identity, but they did leave prints from the soles of their shoes in Mr Howe's flat. We now know that there were at least 2 people involved in the attack. One of them was wearing a pair of Reebok ExoFit training shoes like these. They're available in black or white and can have a low or high back. The boot worn by the attacker is about size 8. The second person was wearing a pair of Brooks basketball boots. They come in many different colours and all have this very distinctive, colourful sole. The boot worn by this person is about a size 9. Both pairs of boots were very new and may have been bought at Christmas or in the January sales. If you know someone who bought or was given boots like these, call us. There is a reward being offered, so if you think you can help, please get in touch.
Next, my colleagues in Dorset would like you to help solve a mystery of a woman's identity. Her fully clothed body was found on Hamworthy Beach at Poole on Thursday the 1st of February. The artist's impression shows us a woman of about 45, 5 feet 6 inches tall, medium build, brown hair and blue eyes. But although detectives believe she had been in the water for no more than 24 hours before being found, they have no idea who she is. However, they do have some clues. Forensic tests suggest some details about her past. She probably wore a brace as a teenager and had a filling by a British dentist in the last 6 to 12 months. And perhaps you recognise this handbag found nearby. Amongst other things, it contained this maroon-coloured afro comb and this book of matches from the Burney Inn at Henley-on-Thames. She was also wearing these earrings, a watch, a bangle, and this unusual scarf with the words Jin Sum Mi printed in one corner. She was also carrying 2 carrier bags from a duty-free shop at Shannon Airport in Ireland. The clothes she was wearing were all size 14 from Debenham's latest stock. Could you possibly have seen her in your local store? If you did or have any idea about who she might be, please ring us now.
Next, South London police have asked for our help to try and solve the murder of 11-year-old Wayne Taylor. Wayne lived with his mother in Kennington, but frequently visited his father in Brixton, just a couple of miles away. In the early evening of Monday the 19th of February, Wayne set out to visit his father. He might have caught a number 3 bus or walked there. In fact, his father was not in on that evening. On Wednesday morning, Wayne's body was found in a disused community centre in Southwick House, Brixton. He'd been sexually assaulted and suffocated. This receipt was found next to Wayne's body. It's for £3.95 for a trapper hat like this. It was bought around 5 p.m. from the Combined Services Supply Shop in Atlantic Road, Brixton, on the Monday that Wayne went missing. The owner of the shop doesn't remember a young boy purchasing a hat that day, so whoever did buy it may hold the key to Wayne's murder. If you saw Wayne on Monday the 19th of February, perhaps on the bus, or remember anything about the sale of a hat like this, however insignificant it may seem to you, please ring us.
Next, Sussex police need your help to find this man. On Saturday the 17th of February, he indecently assaulted one woman and raped another. Just after 9:15 that evening, a 24-year-old woman was walking towards Shoreham Beach. She used the footbridge across the River Ada. A man grabbed her and took her to a nearby yard where he indecently assaulted her. She managed to escape and contacted police. At 11:20, she returned to the area with 3 Shoreham police officers. One of them heard a noise. He looked over a fence and saw a man on the far side of the neighbouring garden. When the officers got into the garden, they found a 17-year-old girl who'd been raped. Despite a full-scale search, the man escaped. Sometime after 11:30 that night, a taxi driver remembers picking up 2 men from Shoreham High Street nearby. He drove them about 5 miles to a bus shelter in Upper Beeding and noticed that one of his passengers had muddy clothes. He's believed to be the man who assaulted both women. He's 25 to 30 years old, about 5 foot 9 inches tall and slim build. He wore a black leather jacket, a black T-shirt, dark-coloured jeans and trainers. If you recognise him, please phone us now.
And finally, a man or a woman could be responsible for this armed robbery of a building society in Birkenhead, Merseyside. The Birmingham Mid-Shires Building Society in Woodchurch Road, Birkenhead, was robbed on Friday the 9th of February at 4:15 in the afternoon. The clothing worn by the robber was found in an alleyway close to the building society just after the robbery. These sunglasses, trilby hat, gloves, scarf, coat, shoes, trousers and shopping bag were all left behind. We'd like to know if you recognise anything here which might lead us to the robber. He or she is described as white, 6 feet tall, slim build with gaunt features and a sharp pointed nose. So if you know who this is or recognise anything from our incident desk cases tonight, please ring us.
And once again, the number here in the studio, if you can help with any of those cases, 01811 8055. That's 01811 8055.
Over the past year, there's been a series of attacks on jewellers who cater for the Asian community in Birmingham. There have now been 17 robberies in all, 7 in the Soho Road area of Handsworth. In several cases, there's been gratuitous violence. Shopkeepers were physically attacked, even though they put up no resistance. And the 2 cases we're about to show you are among those that are causing the greatest concern. In each attack, the gang shouted a torrent of foul language and racial abuse. Now, obviously none of these matters have been featured in our reconstruction, but police have asked us to show a glimpse of the events in the hope of prompting information from those who may know who the assailants are. Throughout the film, we'll be showing subtitles in Punjabi. This is Amarashu Jewellers at the West Bromwich end of Soho Road. It's 7 weeks ago, a night of storms, Thursday the 26th of January at 6:10. The door, as always, was locked. The owners, who've run the shop for 8 years, had been visited by a cousin and were getting ready to go home.
You wait in the queue and you got to wait for the passport and they tell you you're overweight. Do you remember the problems we had?
Yes. I mean,
In reality, the jewellers were both struck by machetes before they found refuge in their workshop.
Don't worry.
No, Jones, don't.
At the Burma petrol station, the gang turned into Oakland Road and then ran across the Oakland Centre football pitch in the direction of Hamilton Road Special School. 5 days later, on Wednesday the 31st of January, this Volkswagen van was stolen from Hindreston Street in Hockley, some 3 miles from Soho Road. It's thought a bus went past as the van was being stolen. If you were near the bus stop or on the 76 going towards the city centre at 6 o'clock that Wednesday evening, please call us straight away. The white van was next seen the following day outside Seatle Jewellers on Soho Road, a few hundred yards from the scene of the last attack. It's 6 p.m. and the owners are closing shop. The jewellers were attacked and forced to lie on the floor while the shop was ransacked. Again, there was a stream of racial insults and other obscenities. The van was later found abandoned not far away in Barnard Drive. It's a dead-end road that backs onto the playing fields and Hamilton Road School, near where the gang had disappeared before. Inside the van were 30 jewellery trays, now empty and abandoned. Just over 2 miles away, 4 days later, this couple were walking their dog across the car park at Swan Pool, just off Forge Lane. These trays came from Seatles. Did you see whoever dumped them here? The detective in charge of the case is extremely anxious to catch these people. We, of course, only hinted at the violence, Mr. Williams, didn't we?
We have indeed. They were very brutal and sadistic attacks on innocent shopkeepers and their family, including their children, with machetes. And I'm extremely anxious that we catch them before they have the opportunity of attacking anybody again. Perhaps next time we're going to have somebody lose an arm or even worse. And I'm appealing now, if anybody out there knows who they are, for heaven's sake, give us a call now.
We didn't show it. In fact, there was a 2-year-old child caught up on it. Thank heavens wasn't injured. There must have been witnesses to the events outside in the street who couldn't have realised what they were, or didn't realise what they were watching was part of a robbery.
Yes, that's quite right. This is a very, very busy shopping area, and there must have been many, many people shopping at that time of night, not realising what has gone on. I hope as a result of seeing this reconstruction in the programme tonight, they realise what did go on.
Now, this is 6 o'clock, 2 successive Thursdays, 6 p.m, Thursday the 25th of January, and the following Thursday, the 1st of February. Now, I should say we have a Punjabi speaker here in the studio, if you want to call in Punjabi. The Volkswagen van, that disappeared overnight, of course.
Yes, it did. Somebody, somewhere, must have seen that van suddenly appear. It was only in their possession for 30 hours because it was recovered quite quickly afterwards. We're interested in finding anybody who saw somebody have that van quite suddenly.
OK, I wonder if anybody knows someone who lost a Timex watercolour watch in the Handsworth area of Birmingham in late January, early February. This one was dropped by one of the robbers in one of the raids. This clothing was all involved as well.
Yes, this clothing has been recovered as a result of our inquiries, along with the watch. And what we're trying to do is to identify somebody who owned this clothing and this watch.
Uh-huh. What about the jewellery? I mean, presumably some people might have been offered large quantities of jewellery made for Asian community.
Yes, the jewellery, as you quite rightly identify, it is aimed towards the Asian community. We're looking to try and find somebody who's been offered it quite cheaply, because there is quite a large quantity of it.
OK. Now, again, some witnesses might be a bit concerned about coming forward. I know the car park at Forge Lane, it's a bit of a lover's lane there. I take it you'll use discretion on
utmost discretion, yes. Please phone us. We will use utmost discretion in relation to anybody who calls us with information.
OK, perhaps there's one other thing I should make clear, and that is that security precautions have since been adopted by most of the jewellers that could be involved in this sort of attack, so hopefully it won't be that easy again in the future. Here's the number if you can help solve this in any way before someone does get hurt much more seriously. 01811 8055. 01811 8055. If you prefer, you can call the incident room at Thornhill Road. That's on 021 626 5432. 021 if you're outside Birmingham, 626 5432.
Well, just looking here at some calls that have been coming on our cases so far, quite a few calls on the Carmel Gamble case with some potentially interesting information, including one caller who claims to recognise the man on the bench by the clothing he was wearing. Somebody else thinks that they might recognise the photo fit of the man seen in Rumbelows on Thursday the 9th of November in Stroud. Well, now some more results from last month's programme. 219 viewers called about the Burgess telephone engineers who conned their way into flats and houses in the more wealthy residential parts of London on the pretext of repairing faults on people's telephone lines. Now, these are the video fits compiled by victims of the conmen, and thanks to Crimewatch viewers, about 100 names have been put to them so far. One viewer rang the studio anonymously with information about suspects and then called again the next day. Police believe he's onto something and they're very anxious for him to call the incident room at Hampstead in northwest London. 01725 5212 is the number. That's 01725 5212. Ask for the incident room at Hampstead. And by the way, since our reconstruction last month, there have been no further reports of their activities.
In our January programme, we featured a burglary in the Midlands where a woman had been tied up by an intruder in her home. As a direct result of that appeal, a man has been arrested. He's been charged with aggravated burglary. And on Photo Call last month, we asked you to look out for George Johnston, who may have information about a series of armed robberies at building societies, not just throughout the UK, but in Ireland too. Now, surprisingly, one of the best leads came from West Germany, where a viewer who'd been sent a video recording of our programme remembered seeing George Johnston last November. It's since been confirmed that he was indeed over there at that time, but police are still looking for him. Now, if you know where he is, wherever you may be in the world, please call Southmead CID in Bristol on 0272 267 984. That's 0272, the code for Bristol, 267 984.
Again on Photo Call last month, we showed a security video from a London bank. 2 calls led directly to an arrest. One viewer rang during the programme, giving a name, and then a second viewer rang 4 days later, giving the same surname, but a different first name. The 2 men named turned out to be identical twin brothers. One twin has been eliminated from the inquiry. His brother is now under arrest, charged with 8 robberies, all at banks in south-east London.
And now to this month's Photo Call. Photographs and video clips of people who could be anywhere and whom police would very much like to trace. Here are Superintendent David Hatcher and Detective Constable
Heathrow
Jackie
Police
Hayes.
would like to speak to Philip Cedric Wells about the theft of foreign currency worth nearly £1 million. The consignment of money was delivered to Heathrow Airport on July the 14th, but failed to arrive at the warehouse for customs clearance. The case attracted huge publicity last summer when it was thought Wells had gone to Florida in America. But since then, he's been seen in the south and east of England. He's stayed in rented rooms and on caravan sites. Wells is 5 foot 8 inches tall, stocky with short brown hair. He may have shaved off his beard but kept his moustache. He's known to be a heavy drinker and smokes a lot. He's also used a variety of other names. Call us if you know where he is now.
The flying squad in London need your help to identify 2 men. They're seen here trying to rob the Allied Irish Bank in Wood Green, North London, last December. Both men were armed. That holdall contained a double-barrelled shotgun, which was pointed at the staff, and the other man had a long knife. Eventually, they rang off, empty-handed. The man with the gun was about 20, 5 foot 10 inches tall, and medium build. The other robber, whose face is clearer, is about 19 and 5 foot 4. If you recognise either of them, call us now.
My colleagues from Reigate in Surrey need your help to trace these two men, Matthew Cheek and Mark Calvert. They may have information about a series of armed robberies at post offices, Lloyds banks and jewellers in the home counties. Over £1 million cash and some jewellery has been stolen in the last 3 months. Matthew Cheek is 23, 6'1" and has a muscular build. He's a keep-fit fanatic. He uses a number of aliases: Anthony Daniels, Michael Brooks and Matthew, Bryce, Ibiqui or Clark. Mark Calvert is 20, between 5'6" and 5'8", and of medium build. He could be calling himself Mark Townsend. It's thought both men are in the Liverpool area. If you do know where they are now, call us. There is a reward being offered.
Finally, West Yorkshire Police want to speak to this man, Gary Dale Dobson. He may have information about a number of deceptions and burglaries in the West Yorkshire and Manchester areas just over a year ago. In one case, an elderly man was threatened with a knife. Gary Dobson is described as 5 foot 10 inches tall, slim build, short dark brown hair and has a pale complexion. So if you think you know where he is now or can help with any of our other photocall cases, then please call us.
There's the number. If any of those people look familiar, 01811 8055, 01811 8055.
Our last case tonight is the murder of a man who didn't seem to have an enemy in the world. But as the crime statistics clearly show, in the vast majority of cases, murder is committed by someone known to the victim. And police feel that this is likely to prove true in this case. Keith Burgess was 39 years old, unmarried, and he'd been living in the Clifton area of Bristol for the past 4 years. And it's there, shortly before Christmas, that our reconstruction takes place. Keith Burgess had close ties with his local church, All Saints in Clifton. He was often a server at Mass. He seems to have been well liked by everyone who knew him. Keith worked for British Rail as a steward, mostly on intercity services between London and the southwest. And because he travelled so much, he had acquaintances in many parts of the country.
Keith was a lovely man. I don't think many people who have come across him will ever met anybody who was quite that easy to get on with. Keith was amazingly charming, easygoing person, very efficient at his job. Just generally a pleasure to know. I've never known anybody have a bad word to say about him, and certainly none of the customers. Great knack at putting people at their ease, entertaining people. Have a drink. Have another drink.
Drinks?
Orange juice, please.
Orange juice? I need orange juice.
Just
You look like the kind of lady like a gin and tonic.
Well, I knew he was gay, but it didn't really matter at all, because the guy's too nice for anything to matter.
Thank you. OK, anybody else? Teas, coffees? No. Okay, teas, coffees? Anybody for teas?
Sunday, the 17th of December. It was the last Sunday before Christmas weekend. Keith nearly always went to Mass on Sundays when he wasn't working. In fact, he'd taken sick leave for the past week, but he was due back on duty that afternoon.
Hello, Keith. How are you this morning?
Oh, a bit tired. Been under the weather with the flu.
Are you not over that flu yet?
I'm back to work today.
Got to go to work this afternoon?
Yeah, this afternoon. Yes.
Never let you lot rest.
See you Friday, I'll be certain.
Oh, you're on that's jolly good. OK, take care. God bless. Look after yourself.
Hi, Betty.
Hello, Keith. Are you going home now?
Well, I'm going to pop in for a quick drink at the pub. Do you want to come?
Oh, no, another time, perhaps.
Okay,
Yes. See you later. Yes, bye.
I must go now as well.
All right, goodbye.
It was about 12:15 when Keith walked round the corner to the pub, as he often did after church. He was there for less than half an hour.
I'm asking how your plans
for
for
today.
today.
Yeah.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
No one actually remembers seeing Keith leave the pub, but it was around 20 to 1 when he started off on the short walk to his home in Duchess Road. It would have been just around this time that a BBC producer noticed a man on the steps leading from Keith's basement flat. He was wearing a blue and white woolen hat and carrying 2 bags, one white and one green, possibly a Marks and Spencer bag. The man was conspicuous for his most peculiar behaviour. He very nervously started trying to hide his face. Once at the corner of Duchess Road and All Saints Road, he seemed to stop and wait. Mrs. Betty Taylor lives in the ground floor flat above Keith's. That Sunday lunchtime, she was at home with a friend grooming her dog.
Good girl now, aren't you? Now keep still, just for a little bit longer.
She's nearly dry now.
Yes. That must be Keith. I'll give him those presents.
All right. I'll see you in a minute.
Mrs. Taylor had known Keith for 10 years through the church, and they were close friends. She used to look after his flat for him whenever he was away. There was a connecting staircase between their flats.
Keith? Where are you?
Hello, Betty.
I brought these presents that were left for you.
Thank you.
I can't stay. I got Janet upstairs. You expecting anybody?
No, I'm just off to work.
Okay then. Cheerio.
Hello. Come in.
Mrs. Taylor didn't see who was at the door, but she had the impression that it was someone Keith knew.
Just get under here. That's it.
Just a little bit on the back.
Yeah.
About half an hour later, she heard Keith's front door slam.
Finished. You're very good. Yes. That must be Keith going. Is that him coming up the stairs?
No.
Oh, he must be packing his things still. Now.
Keith was due to start work on the 2 o'clock train from Bristol to London. Staff delayed the train for 3 minutes, waiting for Keith to arrive. The train departed without him. Later that Sunday afternoon, Keith Burgess was found dead in his flat. He'd been beaten and stabbed. And the date was Sunday the 17th of December. Mr. Barry Stone, that man in the blue and white hat, must surely be the person who killed Keith Burgess.
I think there's little doubt that that's right. And of course we are extremely anxious to identify just who he is.
Now, theft wasn't the motive, but did Keith in fact have any enemies as far as you know?
Well, he was an extremely sociable person. He had friends and acquaintances throughout the country. He was homosexual. His acquaintances and friends were amongst the homosexual communities. He spent the majority of his time in gay clubs and also public houses, not only in Bristol, but elsewhere. He was very outgoing, and I feel confident that if there was ill feeling between him and someone else, then he would have told one of his acquaintances or his friends, and I would appeal to that person to come forward and get that information to us.
He did spend a lot of time in bars, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Around Bristol and various areas.
Yes, certainly London was another place, but he was travelling from as far afield as Penzance to Dundee.
And as you say, he was a very open, chatty person, so if there had been any problems in his life, he could well have perhaps discussed it with one of the people he met.
I feel sure that he would have shared that information with someone else, and I think that person would be doing everyone a favour if they came to us with that information.
In fact, you know that he received 3 quite significant phone calls during the last week before his death.
Yes, he did, and we're confident that those phone calls were made by the same person. There was one phone call during the early hours of the Tuesday prior to his death. There were 2 phone calls between 6 and 9 p.m. on the Wednesday prior to his death. We'd like to speak to the person who made those phone calls. It is, of course, quite possible that they are not related to his murder at all, but we would like to speak to that person. there is some suggestion that the subject of the phone calls was in fact an argument.
And anyone who does wish to come forward who knew Keith will be guaranteed discretion from you?
The gay community in Bristol have been quite complimentary about the manner in which we've dealt with this inquiry, and we would guarantee anyone absolute discretion.
Now, since we made our reconstruction there, another witness has come forward with a new clue.
Yes, we know that on Friday the 15th, that was 2 days before the murder, he was in the Marble Arch area of London where he had lunch with someone. We'd like to speak to that person, and also anybody else who saw him in London on that day.
Right. You also believe that 2 significant articles may be missing now from Keith's flat.
Yes, we know that the week previous to his death, certainly there was a file of facts in the flat and also an album of photographs. Now, the album of photographs may indeed belong to someone else and not Keith Burgess. Certainly neither item was there at the time of his death, when we searched the premises, and we're extremely anxious to trace both items.
But both those items could hold vital clues.
They could indeed.
Well, Mr. Stone, thank you very much indeed. If you have any idea, first of all, who that man in the woolen hat might be, or if you can shed any light at all on who might have wanted to kill Keith, please do let us know. Your call will be treated with absolute discretion. You can speak to Detective Superintendent Stone or to a BBC researcher here if you prefer, or you can ring Mr. Stone's colleagues at the King's Western Incident Room in Bristol on 0272 267 870. That's 0272, the code for Bristol, 267 870.
There are some quite remarkable calls coming in on earlier cases that we dealt with tonight. On the Carmel Gamble murder, some possible names of the man on the bench, of the man in the shop, and indeed some really quite interesting information on what somebody thinks could be the suspect for the murder. Also on the Birmingham jewellery attack, some quite interesting information, including some names. Quite a volume of calls on that. On the High Wycombe stabbings, again someone has put a clear name to what the person they think is the suspect of that, and the police are making inquiries on that right now.
Well, in fact, if you think you have information on any of tonight's cases, please do call us. Sometimes it's the slightest little detail that suddenly brings everything into focus. The lines here are open until shortly after midnight. If you'd like to ring the relevant investigating forces direct, all those numbers are on CFAX if you have that, on page 618. Or, of course, you can call your local police station. If you'd like to write to us, the address, as ever, is Crimewatch UK, BBC Television, London W12 7RJ. We'll be back with a report on this evening's calls after question time. That'll be at 11:45 tonight. And we'll be able to bring you even more news, hopefully, of developments on Daytime Live tomorrow, shortly after midday.
Meanwhile, do remember, we've condensed together in 45 minutes isolated crimes that took place over several months and were scattered around the country. And in any case, with your help, some of them are already on the way to being solved. So don't have nightmares, do please. Sleep well. Good night.
Good night.